Good evening, folks, and welcome back to Chilling. My name is Drago. Now, if you're just joining us, you have missed a lot, but still, a lot is yet to come. Now, we have been here since last week. This is Food Plus with my guest, who I'm going to introduce to you again. Once again, this is Chilling. The hashtag is chillingubctv. Now, thank you very much for tuning into the show. I'm always so excited to know that you guys are watching. I swear to God. So now, how can I start from? The strength of theater and arts in our country right here is so unimaginable. Now, Jason is a young poet, he's a writer, he's a talented brother. Now, his poems go beyond authenticity and emotional intelligence, and just not just in one poem, but they go beyond just one single poem. So Jason is still here with me. I'm gonna ask him more about poetry, and he's gonna be delighted enough to tell me everything that he knows about poem. So Jason,
yes,
I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm glad again.
Once again, I'm introducing you once again. Last week we talked about fear.
Yes.
You remember very properly?
Yes.
And we had a feast on that. And then you also did this crazy, exciting poem that left everybody wondering and nodding their head like, damn. Maybe we should stop listening to music and we dive into poetry.
Let's not do
How
poetry.
does it feel to be a poet in Uganda?
How does it feel? It has its mixed emotions. There are moments when it's really nice, yeah? I'll give an example of a poem I once recited, and it's a poem called 3 Years, 2 Months, and 5 Days. It's a poem about domestic violence. So after I performed the poem, a lady came to me and she said, thank you so much. She was in tears. She said, thank you so much for performing this poem. I now feel like there's someone out there who understands what I'm going through. At that moment for me, I felt like, my God, this is, like money can't make me feel as happy as I felt at that moment. Because I felt like my poem has connected with someone and it has helped them in a situation somehow. It might not be like it has solved the whole problem, but it has given them a little bit of light. For me, that is one thing that I find worth, like it's worth, I don't know, I can't even explain it. You can't quantify it or put money to it or put anything to that.
But it's a great
but
feeling.
It's a beautiful feeling. It's a very, very beautiful feeling.
One thing that I failed to mention to you guys that Jason has found a way of channeling his mischief into poetry. That's why most of his poetry crosses around as harsh and hard, because it used to come from a very dark place. So I'm gonna find out that much later. We're gonna talk about that. But do you come from a family of poets? Do most of your family members do poetry as an art?
Okay, so my sister, my elder sister, she's called Rita. She does music. She's an instrumentalist. She plays any instrument you put in her hands, she can play it.
Talented.
She's just talented. Ever since she was a young kid, she's only used to bully us into learning how to play guitar and piano and things like that, although I don't know how to play any of them.
Why?
Because I don't want.
You're not interested?
I wasn't interested at all. I didn't have very many interests when I was younger. I was very quiet. I never used to talk to people. I was secluded. I didn't see any use of having people around me. I was like, I have my own self and that's all I need. Yeah. But I was young and foolish, obviously. So I made a lot of mistakes along the way. But then my brother, called Moses, for him, he has a studio. He runs a studio, video and audio studio. Then my younger sister, however, for her, she's not in the arts. She's not in the arts, however. But now if I go to my grandparents, my grandfather used to write classical music. He was very good with the piano, very good with the guitar, very good. You know, so the arts are there in our blood.
Something. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, that you found a way of getting this mischief out of your system through poetry.
Yeah.
Please tell me, how did it begin? How were you raised? Were you raised from a very bad place? And come on, were you this bad guy that, doesn't want to joke around, cigars and all the, substance abuse and all? What do you mean by you channeled your mischiefs into your art?
Okay, growing up, I felt like I was an outsider in everything. We grew up in a foreign country as refugees. Came back to Uganda.
As refugees?
Yeah, it was during the wartime.
Oh, wow.
So we had to flee and live that side. So when we came back, still I felt like I couldn't connect with people. People were making fun of how I speak. People were making fun because I don't speak Luganda, because I don't do this, because I don't do that, you know, and I couldn't pronounce certain names. So people used to make a lot of fun of me. So I used to now distance myself. And yes, so I started drinking alcohol. I started smoking and doing all kinds of things, taking all kinds of weird drugs and things like that. So my life wasn't very, at that point, I can't say, yes, I had a good life, or I would want anyone to have that kind of life, yeah? So I would get into bar fights. I'd go home with blood, swollen face, cuts, and things like that. But luckily, my mom was very patient, very, very patient. And I thank God for a mother like that. But
So how do you get to change your life around?
so now how it happened
Who gave you
is...
that opportunity? How did it happen?
Yeah, so this is what's happened. A friend of mine, okay, then he wasn't my friend, I didn't really know him. He's called Guy Mambo. He called me at night and he said, Jason, on Sunday we have a poetry thing at the National Theatre where we sit down, we write our poetry and we share it amongst ourselves.
This place right here.
Right here, actually in this very space right
Kidding
now.
me. In this space
In this
right
very
here.
space, yeah. This is where the Lantern Meet of Poets was born. Yeah, that's the name of the group, Lantern Meet of Poets. So I came, joined them. I saw how they were doing their thing, and it was a different setup. You know, in class, you go, you see the teacher's talking, now open the page, this page, now we're looking for this theme, now this theme, this, blah, 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 blah. But here it was more about the individual, you know. Me, I've written my poem, and this is what it sounds like, and then people from around come and they tell you, now we like your poem or we don't like your poem. And it was very strict critique, yeah. And that's what sharpened us into becoming the poets we are. But anyway, so I was digressing. Now, when he called me, I came to come and watch them, and I saw how they were doing it, and I found it was very cool. It was a very nice way of doing it. So as I kept coming, they kept telling me, write something, feel, write something. And so I wrote a poem called 3 Years, 2 Months, 5 Days, the one which I spoke about earlier. So I wrote that poem, and they were like, wow, this is really good. This is good. So even me, I was like, yeah, let me keep trying this. So every time I would write about specific things that are happening in my life, you know? I wouldn't write about, oh, someone this or someone that. It would be things that I am going through at that particular moment.
Because I understand that poetry is sort of solitary. You know, it's you sit alone to come up with most of this.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell me another thing. This form of poetry that you do, is it spoken word, right? Is it slam?
No, it's not slam.
What are the different forms of poetry?
Now, slam is usually, it's more of a competitive art. Slam is competitive poetry. Then spoken word is basically like spoken word, you know, what you call spoken word. But then also in poetry, you have all of these different different types. You have haiku, which is, it's written syllabically. You count how many syllables are in the first line, the second line, and the third line, and it's only supposed to have 3 lines. So as you go into poetry, you start to see that all of these different things. It's a very broad thing, but we just don't know it because in school they don't teach us these things. Yeah, they just teach you basics, and they don't teach you life in poetry.
Okay. Okay, now this is what's gonna happen, guys. Before we move on forward, he's gonna do another performance because today we are all about giving poetry a platform. You know, so he's gonna do a little performance, and then we go in for a break where I will ask him questions like, why isn't poetry taking over? Why isn't it clicking like fire? And what is happening to our curriculum? Why aren't they embracing poetry? So Jason is gonna do a little performance for you guys. I hope you enjoy it. So enjoy Jason's performance.
This is a poem that I've been talking about, 3 years, 2 months, and 5 days. Bang, bang, crack, another broken bone, broken back, broken heart, and broken soul. But that pain is bearable when you're in love, or so she was told. You see, she believed someday he would change, but change don't come as soon as she expects it. And yet she stands strong and hangs on, even when fist meets cheek. And now hues of red, black, and blue fill her eyes, and those petals for lips that he once said he adored slowly tell stories of gore. And now 3 years, 2 months, and 5 days. 3 years, 2 months, and 5 days. 3 years, 2 months, and 5 days, and things are still the same. Only today he comes home with a different smell. You see, she was used to the usual smell of booze and spit, but this time he stunk of Jezebel juice and spit, and she could not contain it. She just could not contain it. You can hit me, rape me, and break my bones, but never ever bring another woman into my home, she says. You can hit me, rape me, and break my bones, but never ever bring another woman into my home, she says. And now 3 years, 2 months, and 5 days, and those were her last words.
Wow, what's the title of that?
3 years, 2 months, and 5 days.
So we'll return back shortly with the other parts. Stay around, guys. Yeah, thank you guys for staying with us. Now, I want to find out, when I listen to that piece you just performed, it's so sentimental. It has that soft-heartedness feeling. It has made me, I literally wanted to cry, but I couldn't because I'm on TV. Tell me, how is your creative process like? How do you come up with all this stuff, man?
It's about being in the moment. For me, it's about being in the moment. I can't explain it any other way. And it's about accepting yourself to feel. Because now, like, if I decided I wanted to write a poem about domestic violence, that's what this poem is about. And yet I didn't put myself in the mind frame of the person going through that thing, then I won't be able to perform it or write something that is as gripping. So you have to put yourself in the shoes, in that situation as it is, so that you feel all of the emotion and you're able to squeeze it out of you and put it onto your pen and paper.
Do you get criticized for some of your performances? Is there like a certain scrutiny they put for you, like a certain filter? You're not supposed to say this. They keep your mouth shut sometimes.
Yeah, there are many times that this has happened. There's like a time we went to Mukono, UCU, and there was a poem I wanted to perform, and I told them, this is the poem I'm going to do. You know the poem, that intimacy minus intricacy.
Oh man, I like that.
Should I do that one now?
No, you're gonna do it before we close the show.
No. It's a bit too much.
Wait, instead of that, what maybe we shall use potato or banana.
We shall see.
Listen, man, I want you to perform every time because I'm loving it. But
you see, now, so they told me you can't perform this poem. And I kept trying to tell them, but you see, the focus of this poem is not on those words. The focus of this poem is on what the poem is about. The poem is about us being very disconnected from each other and how we treat each other as if we are not in the world together, you see. Yeah. So that's what the focus of that poem is. But now also the way I wrote it was that the beginning and the end of the poem have sexual connotations and things like that. So people, when they hear the beginning, they're like, oh my God, he's talking about sex. But then the middle of the poem is all about how governance is working. It's talking about socially how we are together. It's talking about how we are as a family. It's talking about how, you know, and frustrations in life and things like that. Yeah. So people just look at surface and don't pay attention to the inside part, you see. And yet poetry is something that you can't just decide to say, you know, I'm only going to bring surface stuff, because poetry is not about surface. Poetry is about something that's deep within.
So somebody who's watching this show is probably hearing us mumbling, hey, poetry, yasinga, biti. What is happening?
Okay, this is one of the things that's happening is the misconception that they're feeding people. Mainly young people, yeah? One of the misconceptions is, have passion, and that's what the focus is. You hear people always saying, as long as you have passion, that's all you need. But that is a very big lie. Me, I've seen this personally. You have to have passion, but you have to have direction as well. You have to plan your things. So if you're passionate and you're here and you write very brilliant poetry, but you don't know how to plan how you're going to perform it, you don't know how to plan where you're going to take it, you don't have people who you're working with and things like that, your poem is going to stay on your page and on that stage that you go once in a while too. But then if you have a focus and you know, I want my poetry to move from this point to another, then you decide, what am I going to do to make it move from this point to that? Then you'll be able to move forward. So there are few poets in Uganda who have been able to do that. There are few. There's Peter Kagai, I don't know if you know him. He's managed. He has focused on his work and he has done it. There is now a new young guy coming up called Zombie. That's his stage name, but he's called Agaba Ivan. He's also very good. He also performs on stage. And there are very many different poets. There's Adafina Rinda and what.
Before I forget this question, because it sort of tackles that area. There. How do you rank yourself? when it comes to poetry in Uganda? Hey,
This is a question that I've never been asked before, and I don't know how to
this
answer.
is chilling. This is where I ask random questions.
Let me see.
If I ask you the expected, then what will happen?
But then you see,
How
the
do
thing
you
is,
rank yourself?
the thing is, we all have like a different thing that we. Yes, we're all in a poetry circle. Yes, but then each one brings something else to the table. You see,
Of course,
yeah?
there are some who do poetry in indigenous language.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Like I was telling you earlier, there's a poet called Lule. Yeah, his poetry is strictly in Luganda. Then we have people like Django the Man Eater, who does his in Lusoga. Then we have, we have different people who do it in their own indigenous
Okay, find a
languages.
position. I have here 1, 2, 3. Let us first go with those top 3. Saga Kumbuzabuza, find a position. Are you the first, the second, the third?
The first shall be the last, and the last shall be the first.
No. Bro, top ranking. Man, listen, the reason
I'm
why
not
I
top
brought
ranking.
you here, I know because you're the best. Now, okay, now what can the whole society change perception towards poetry, especially in because it's gonna start from the grassroots,
Yes,
right?
it has to.
You go to schools, and you keep on encouraging kids to join poetry classes. How are they gonna change the curriculum? Because there's some schools that actually carry on that as a subject.
As a subject, yeah.
Me, where I studied Tiber, I've told you, we have poetry classes. But there are also other schools, which is the majority of the schools, that don't want to know.
Yeah,
They
that's
don't
true.
even know what it's all about.
That's true.
So how can you change the perception? Man, how can you make them
Well,
look into that light?
Our initial plan for changing this whole perception was going to schools, having clinics, but then also, the problem is when you go to the schools, you'll find maybe the administrators don't understand what you want to do. And so they'll say, no, we don't want you in our school. What are you
But
going
why
to do?
would they call you in the first place?
No, they are not the ones who call. So you're the one who makes the initiative. So you make the first step. You go to the school, you tell them we'd like to talk to you about ABCD. They say, okay, cool, you come. So you sit and you talk to them. But then now the problem is, for them, they don't understand what you're offering them. Because for them, even themselves, they're like, no, we don't see the relevance of poetry in the future. You see, and this is a bad mentality that we have in our society. People think that poetry is just a way of entertaining, But then the fact of it is that poetry is something that goes deep in the soul, When a person is a poet and he's writing his poetry, or if you're listening to a poem, it's something that is supposed to invoke something within you. Poetry is supposed to be a mouthpiece for a society, yeah? So through the poetry is where the society is supposed to be speaking. Through music, through dance, through different arts, creative arts. It's an expression of what people are feeling, you see. So now you go to schools, but the schools will say, no, we don't want you to come in. But then now, that's when we now have to switch up our game as the people who go to those schools. Yeah. So now, like, for example, if I go to a school and I tell them I want to bring a poetry show, and they say no, my next step should be, I go home, go to different places where there are poetry performances, or I go to different schools and I record, a little clip here, there, then go to that school and show that school. See, this is what can happen to your students, you see. Now, like recently, there was a poetry competition in Aga Khan school. And there were different schools. There was Nabisunsa, there was Namagunga, there was SMAC, I think even Namliango. And so what I saw out of that was, it wasn't even a poetry society that came from outside of the school to come and tell them to do this. No, it was the school's choice on their own. The students came to the teacher sat down with who, what. They planned it all out, spoke to the different people from the different schools and brought them in together. Now, that is one thing that we need to keep on doing in order for these things to happen.
We need to catch up. We need to catch up because, listen, Nigeria is kicking off.
Yeah, it is.
You know people like Titi Lope, they're doing her thing, and some other hundreds of them. I mean, because poetry has been always part of the African heritage. Mostly Nigerians have embraced it.
Yeah.
We've read books from Chinua Achebe, those great people who used to write good literature.
Yeah.
So I think it's not a strange thing. But okay, now you're convincing parents and dragging their kids into poetry, but how are they convinced that the kids will get money out of it? Is it lucrative?
It is. That's what I was saying earlier on. It's about how you build yourself, yeah? Because if, like, for example, I had to get a manager, so I get a new manager. So when I have the manager is going to help me to figure out things that I can't figure out. Now, when it comes to things like money or administrative things here and there, because for me, I want to focus on the art, writing, preparing myself for the performances
Speaking
and
volumes,
things like that.
like how do you get paid?
It varies actually, because you can go to a place, you get paid 300,000. Now, like, let me give you something. Let me show you this. Imagine you have 4 different shows in 1 month. Yeah, each show is paying you 200, 300,000 shillings. In a month, how much are you making? Do you see that? In a month, you have 4 weeks. You're being paid 200,000 shillings. And now what's 2 times 4? That's 8. You've made 800,000 shillings in a month. So now tell me that a poet can't make money.
Jason, are you trying to tell? Because this is almost equivalent to what artists, musicians here make.
Yep, I know. And now
not so far away
it's
from-
because people are blinded by this thing. They think because they've looked around and like, poetry in Uganda is useless. But if you put yourself in that situation and you're like, I am going to make money out of this, then it will be made. It's about your personal decision. It's not about what people say. Because everyone will keep saying things. When I meet people and they ask me, so what do you do? And I tell them I do poetry. Then they ask me, what else? Because they have that mentality that you can't do anything with poetry.
Can a poet and a musician here in Uganda, can they do on the same stage? Can they have isn't there like a controversy? Or?
No. All art is all embracing. All art, it works together. They all work together. I've performed with different artists as well. I've performed with, I don't know if you know More Roots. Maureen Rutavinga. Very perfect, very beautiful performer. Very beautiful performer.
By the way, tell her I need her on my show because I swear I've tried to have her on my show.
I shall give her a call.
Yeah, give her a call and tell her what the show is all about. Bro.
I will do that. I will do that.
So More Roots is great, eh?
Yeah, I've worked with her and different artists, you know. You come together, you sit down, you talk, you look at what you want to do, how you want to create something, and then you move forward from that point.
You know what I hate most? It's not that you're here. It's not that you're here. But every time that producers have to tell me we are run out of time, I'll be like, because I love to chill. I love to be in front of TV and hear good conversation. Because we're all about good conversation. We're all about telling stories to people you know and people you don't know. But we're mostly fascinated with people that you don't know. We bring them to you. So now, man, we are not going to have a video segment, by the way, guys, because we have instead gonna have a poetry performance. So now we're gonna wrap it up, but before, I have a present for you, bro. It's right here. I have a brand new necklace for you. But before you get it, first give them one more, please. Give them one more.
I have to think about which one.
Improvise. It's not gonna be so long.
Okay.
There you go. The big man has decided to give you some more.
But I shall do it. I'll not do the whole one so that you guys can find me online.
I just want a nice bag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me start. Okay. In my home, legal lies are scripted by the legal eyes to legalize my demise. In my home, my roof of shelter leaks, and through that crack seeps a slime that prohibits my speak. The kitchen from where I eat is where the provider cheats and takes my lot for their own keep. Whereas our nature gone. You see, there was a time when words once spoke to the Son of Man, when the Son of Man understood the chemistry of one, when the strings around land were dust and feet, but now these strings turned shackles are boots and concrete. You see, humanity seems to stream on by, suffering an up waterfall climb, losing limb after limb until nothing is left of kinsmen. Stop. I've left it there.
Swag! I'm telling you. Jason, have this.
Thank you.
You can put it on.
Thank you.
It is a necklace, an African thing. Yeah. Since you're all about African poetry, have African pieces.
Africa.
By the way, it adds onto another collection of one of your...
Yeah, I have many. I'm going to keep it on forever.
Jason, listen, bro. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This has been amazing. I've enjoyed this.
I've enjoyed myself very much as well.
Take care of yourself.
Most definitely.
And please, let us make sure that poetry becomes as much popular as it can.
Yes.
I just pray that you guys that have watched push this brand and push poetry as much as you can. It is as equivalent, as exciting as other forms of art. Thank you very much for watching Chiiling.
Oh, if I can, just something quick, very quick.
Yeah,
if you want to watch Poetry Nights, if you want to come for Poetry Nights, there's a Poetry Night on Thursday next week, Gatomato from 7 o'clock. And we will, if you come, you check out my Facebook. I'm Jason Ntaro, also on Twitter.
Also on YouTube.
Also on YouTube, Ntaro. So you will find, and I'll keep updating my, those different shows that are going to be coming up. Okay. I'll keep updating him on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I discovered him, by the way. He's so popular on YouTube. He's trending. Thank you very much for watching Chiiling. This has been an exciting episode of Chiiling. I've been with a young poet who is a writer, a spoken word performer, and one of the most incredible creme de la creme of this country. Now, Jason is a talented young brother, and I know you guys have enjoyed his incredible story and what he had to say about poetry. Now, thank you very much. I'm going to end right here, and I'm going to stop mumbling because I'm talking too much. But thank you very much. I've been Drago, and this has been Chiiling. I'm with my guys Henry, Herbert, you got Tony, and Madame Sophie, who is the head of production, and everybody that is at UBC that is doing a great job to make sure that we have an awesome time. Chiiling is gonna be right back. The hashtag was chillingubctv. We are available on Twitter. We're also trending like Jason on Twitter. We're also available on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you very much for watching Chiiling. See you next week, same time at the same day. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Similar. I'm told that's the answer. Similar. When you say well done, you say similar.
Similar.
Don't regret, because that's why I'm a storyteller. I have a lot of things to tell. You get it? Because I think if I did not grow up in that kind of situation, I couldn't have been a storyteller. Because I have a lot of things where I can tap in every kind of situation of life.